Good morning, everyone. Welcome back from spring break. I hope that it was a fun and relaxing one for you, and that you got a little, R&R in, and are feeling refreshed this week. So, a couple things that are important before I go over this week's work. First of all, I submitted the midterm grades already, so you'll get those from the registrar tomorrow, so you'll know where you stand in the class. And then Wednesday is an important date for some of you because that's the deadline to withdraw from the class without any academic penalty. So most of you are keeping caught up. If you're keeping caught up, you should be having a passing grade right now. If you are 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks behind, you are going to have to think hard about whether you want to stay in the class or not. Because after Wednesday, if you stay in the class, you're going to get whatever grade you get at the end of the semester. And if you don't do your work, it won't be a very good one. So if you're in a position now where you can't catch up, you have until Wednesday to withdraw from the class without receiving an F. If you withdraw Thursday or later, then the penalty is that you get an F regardless. So think it over. If you're passing the class, what I just said is irrelevant to you. But if you're not passing the class, you have a decision to make, and you're running out of time. Okay. This week we've got two major topics to cover. All the readings are very short, but they're very important readings. The first one is the woman question, and during the Victorian period, at the beginning of the Victorian period, the women's place was in the home, and they were supposed to be wives and mothers. As the Victorian period progressed, and remember, this was about a 60-year period we're talking about here, women started demanding more rights. They started demanding the right to have jobs. They started demanding the right to marry later in life. They started demanding the right to decide whether they wanted to be wives or mothers or not, and so on. So we're going to see a progression starting with John Ruskin's The Queen's Gardens, and we're going to have another reading. John Ruskin's reading is about 1630s, 1640s. The Walter Besant reading, the Queen's Reign, there's a little section in that book that is in your anthology where women were different from at the beginning of the Queen's Reign. And he outlines what those differences are and how much more independent women are and how much more say women are having in their own lives at the time. So the woman question, which was hotly debated throughout the Victorian period and to some extent still is today, not as much, but to a little bit of an extent. That's what two of the readings from this week cover, and they're each about a page or so each. They're not very long. Then there's the imperialism. There was a time when England claimed dominion over about a quarter of the land throughout the entire earth, on all 7 continents. That tiny little island country, through its navy and through its expansion, claimed dominion over many places, including India. And so the two readings you're going to have today are going to be about India. One of them is going to be from Macaulay, Thomas Babington Macaulay, and it's going to make the argument that Indian children need to be educated in English. But he's going to make the statement that, well, the Indian children aren't as smart as British children. So what we have to do is take the smartest ones and educate them, then have them educate the dumb ones. It's really a little arrogant, but that's a debate you hear now. People say, if people come over to America, they have to learn English. Well, he's making that argument for Indian children in India, in their school. And then the other side of it is going to be William Russell, who wrote, or William Howard Russell, who wrote about something called the Cawnpore Massacre. And when you read about this, basically what there was an uprising, right? So the British had been living in India. They were making lots of money. They were living in the nicest houses, the nicest neighborhoods. They were holding lavish parties, while the Indians, who were there first, and this is the India Indians, they were living in poverty. And basically the British were making lots of profits off the backs of the labor of the Indians and by taking away the Indian land and so on and so forth. So in Cawnpore, what happened was there was an uprising, and the native Indians had massacred all of the British that lived there, men and women and children. All of them were killed. And there was, of course, outrage in Britain saying we can't allow that to happen. As you can imagine, same thing would happen if Americans got murdered in another country. We can't let that happen. We have to punish the people that did this. And Russell's going to come in, and he's going to look at all the carnage, and he's going to, he's like a reporter. He's going to look at all the carnage, and he's going to look at the standard of living between the British and the Indians, and he's going to say, well, do you really blame the Indians? He doesn't condone the attack, and of course he, doesn't say that they did the right thing by killing all these British folks, but he does say, you can almost understand why they did it, and you'll understand why when you read his argument. So, imperialism and the woman question, the two big questions that are being asked today. Read the introductory material as well. That is assigned to you in the syllabus, because that introductory material will orient you in where the woman's debate was at the time, and it will certainly orient you on why Britain felt the need to conquer so many lands and to hold on to those lands for as long as they did before they finally started letting some of them declare their own independence. So that's this week's readings. Very educational, and I hope that you will enjoy them.